Hey folks, welcome back to the Grimdark Compendium. In this course episode, I'll be taking a look at how to design kit bashes and conversions, what goes on in the back of my mind when I do it, and I have a few approaches that I fluctuate between, so I'll talk more generally. This tutorial isn't really meant as a tutorial, but more of a short video essay that is supposed to inspire, help you find your own spark of creativity and hopefully help you follow it and keep it burning. But before I start talking about Grimdark conversions and builds, we first have to set up a foundation to go from. So what exactly is Grimdark? How do you grasp it? A lot of different miniature styles have a sort of clear-cut look and what they should have visually. But the Grimdark style delves beyond that, beyond the pure visual. It isn't as concrete, and even in the community, going around Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and other social media, you will see little subgroups or pockets of hobbyists interpreting it in different ways, putting focus on different aspects. The core is the same, but flavors change. For me personally, it is a lot about feeling, something that I inherently understand when I see it, and feel connected to. But when I actually grasp it, I see the different facets that are present in the Grimdark genre. The Grimdark does have its roots in real history, themes that are always inherently present in some way, at the core. In broader strokes, it's a reflection to the human condition, the suffering, personal and systemic, the catastrophes of war, and how it changes a full human being into a pile of violent meat, stripping it of personality and what makes it a person. It's not just about the direct influence of war, but about the indirect influences of what war does behind your own lines, far, far away from the front line. How mind warps under the pressure of systemic beliefs pushed onto a person, the despair of famine, existential doubts, losing oneself, grief, and more. That is at the heart of Grimdark. A good example of what I mean by this, so you can catch the vibe, are a few paintings. Just to give you an example, something like Wrath of the Medusa by Theodore Géricault, paintings by Francesco Goya, Zdzislaw Beksinski, or Hieronymus Bosch. Look at the paintings, see how they make you feel, and then take a look of what is the background of their creation, what made the artist depict such scenes, what is the context. Especially with Hieronymus Bosch, you'll notice a lot of weirdness, an uncanny valley effect, bordering with silliness. That kind of strangeness is a key part of creating a strong visual, taking something that you know and understand, and twisting it, changing it, even just a little, so it's recognizable, but there is that moment your brain tells you that something is off, creating an emotional reaction. Think of it as looking at something through a fever, which distorts reality for you. Strange shapes and poses. A decent example of what a feeling is, and what I'm trying to explain, is War of the Worlds, and the alien machinery there. Imagine you are a person in that movie, and you see the alien machines moving in the mist. Strange shapes of metal and light. And you know it is something mechanical. Yet you do not really understand how it works and what's its purpose. And that feeling of uncertainty, of unpredictability, is what I'm talking about. Don't be bound to pure realism when building miniatures, to just depict things that only make sense. You don't have to respect the borders of some presumed way of how things should look like. You can just have enough realism to bound something to reality, to sort of ground it just a bit. And then go off into the unnatural and the grotesque. When creating original miniatures, remember that every shape, every object, every addition and item carries a meaning, an inherent symbolism. It physically being there implies something larger. Each and every thing exists in a context, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to spell it out and spell out that context in the build, very clearly, or that it needs to be clearly visually stated. You can leave things ambiguous, just imply, and keep it subtle, just little additions here and there. A shape of gallows carries the symbol and context of death, law, oppression. A tank turret can mean violence, advancement in technology, horrors of war. And something like a gas mask brings us straight to the context of World War I in this case, just because of how recognizable and bound to that period and theme it is. This is something akin to a Jungian theory of collective unconsciousness, a shared layer of human mind that contains memories and experiences common to humanity for a long time, divided into archetypes like wise old man, the mother, the trickster, and so on. Think of it as symbols and narratives that were here so long that they are ingrained into a cultural context of how you perceive and read the world. This all is not a rigid structure that you should follow, but rather something to be conscious about. And if you are, you will develop a certain feel for it, and it will be almost unconscious. It's okay to just build models and make decisions based on your own emotions and inspirations, following your heart, so to speak, just going with the flow. But I strongly believe that going beyond that is what leads to truly special pieces of miniature art. Following that, you shouldn't also feel constrained by a certain aesthetic. I know how it is, and I too was purely Warhammer hobbyist when I started, just bound to those borders. But there is so much more to the hobby than Warhammer. There is such an amount of games, indie sculpts, scale and historical kits that offer so much opportunity for different and combined visuals that it would be a shame to forgo them entirely. In Grimdark Style, we combine different models and bits, Warhammer and historical scale models, because they offer a different aesthetic, different shape and feel, and thus more options. With mundane items like wires of different sizes, cloth, metal rods and tubes, chains, jewelry bits and sculpted details, creating powerful visuals even from the simplest of ideas, like a warehouse servitor. There are a lot of different approaches on how to come up with an idea for a conversion or for a kit bash or model. You may see a unit for a game that you want to field, but don't like the original model or have your own idea on how it should look. Or maybe it's the other way around, and where you get inspiration for something. Maybe see just a few bits that scream to be put together in a build, and only after that you fit your own idea into rules for an existing unit, so you can make it work in the game setting. Making my original builds and conversions fit into a game and rule set are a way of, at least for me personally, to really give me motivation to actually go through all the work. Because then I can think about the build like, hey, if I finish this, I can actually use it and create a narrative in the game rules and share it with the opponent or with a co-op partner, depends what game you're playing. Maybe you have a narrative for a character in mind from the beginning and want the miniature to represent it, or maybe you feel strongly about a theme or a visual and want to create something close to that. I myself really fluctuate between ideas. A lot of the time I get inspiration from seeing a bit or two from a kit and saying to myself, oh, those would look great together and fit with this, creating the idea of something cool in my head. It doesn't always work. Sometimes the scale is wrong or the pieces don't really fit in reality when I get them in my hand, but it's a process. Sometimes I just see a cool mini from someone else that makes me inspired to make my own go at it. Kit bashing and converting is a lot about trial and error. You can either plan really well, trying out how the pieces fit and look together with white tag, or just sticking them in place for a little bit, non-permanently, trying the visual representation in stuff like Photoshop. Or you can forgo all that and just having a wild go at it, which can be really liberating. If you use the latter though, you will often, or at least I do, run into stages where the build itself will create its own demands on what needs to be added almost. Like, they're building a fleshy mass to connect the turret, and so I took a liberty of shaping it into something almost like a tumor, with wrinkly texture and boils made of ball bearings. The commander was also looking a little too naked, so 2 pieces of jewelry bits made for 2 very military looking additions. As a rule of thumb though, it's good to try and build as cleanly as possible. If something is supposed to be messy, make it intentional and controlled still. I could talk for hours on end about building ideas and philosophy, but this is a good spot to call it in a general sense. I think I've given you most important pieces of how I approach model building and conversion. If you're intrigued by the combination of different kits for model making, I really recommend checking the Scale Hammer course that we have on the Grimdark Compendium, and it will probably be in the bundle with this video specifically, so you probably have it in the lineup of videos that you want to see already. Thanks for watching, and remember what Grimdark explores: the shadowy reflection of the human condition, miserable, dystopian, and properly weird.